compared with the French Revolution, from the time it took 3 years to the end of the monarchy, right? And what happened in 3 years in France took place in Russia 5 days.
There is one quote that from your book. Nicholas said that he had tried his best to reign over Russia for 22 years and asked Rodzienko, for 22 years it was all a mistake? Rodzienko took a deep breath and answered, "Yes, Your Majesty, for 22 years you followed the wrong course." So maybe because for 22 years he was making the wrong decisions, that eventually in just 5 days it could like all collapse.
That's right. When uh, Nicholas Nicholas was not prepared to become the Tsar because he was not trained. He did not have any experience. But when he took the throne, he had a choice. One, will he go to the tradition of his grandfather, Alexander II, great reforms, or the tradition of his father, Alexander III, who believed in autocracy? When he took throne, he chose the second option. And so he said, okay, I am going to inherit the autocracy that my father maintained. I am going to bequeath that autocracy to my son. That's the whole life was devoted to that mission. And that's his essence of his reign. That's why he said 22 years was a mistake.
Yeah, because what you wrote about in your book too is how he also felt like ruling Russia was like a god-like gift, right? It was something God assigned him to do. And I think that doesn't also really help with like leadership if you think it's sent by God. I could imagine it affects his ego in some type of form.
Machiavelli once said that it's a hereditary sort of authority had an easier time. But in order to maintain that authority, you have to be careful about. You have to, due to the change of the time, you have to adjust the system to the change of the time. This is first, and avoid crisis. Second, and the third, avoid scandals. I think Nicholas violated all those conditions.
Yeah, he did. But even though he violated all those conditions, to me it's kind of fascinating that he was still able to manage for 22 years.
He went through serious crisis during his reign. When he had a coronation, very important ceremonial coronation, and then after the coronation, uh, um, people came because there's tradition that, after the coronation there will be a free beer, and then a special commemorative cups will be distributed. So people gathered in a field. The security was very bad, and the stampede took place, and hundreds of people were killed. And despite that, Nicholas and Alexandra, under the advice of his very powerful uncles, danced in the French embassy. And so that at the first crisis, he gained the nickname called Nicholas the Bloody. And the second crisis is a Russo-Japanese war. Here, the upstart Japan defeated Japan. I mean, Russia, the great power. Humiliation for great power, right? And then, on the wake of the defeat, the workers marched to the Winter Palace because of the petition to improve their life. They are fired upon by troops. And then again, hundreds were killed. And then World War One took place. It turned out that he was a very incompetent leader. And Russia suffered in Eastern Prussia and suffered great retreat. Nicholas did not want to start the war, but he was pushed by his ministers and public opinion, and then enter the war. So again, it's the third crisis. And so he decided to change, he took over the Supreme Commander and replaced rather popular his cousin Niccolò Nikolaevich. And he became the Supreme Commander-in-Chief in summer of 1915.
I'm quite curious. What was the relationship like between him and his soldiers? Was it always bad or was it 50-50?
Well, most of the soldiers did not have a conception of, say, Russia as a nation. Their loyalty was their villages, their community. They didn't know why they are fighting, right? But they swore allegiance. They swore allegiance, and allegiance, I mean, both soldiers and officers swore allegiance to the Tsar, not to the nation. Swearing allegiance is a very important method by which that they enforce discipline among soldiers, right? As far as the officers are more educated, right? But they knew what was going on in Petrograd, the Rasputin's influence and so on. And gradually, that 2.5 years of war, those officers came to realize that their swearing allegiance to the Tsar is divorced from swearing of the fighting for the nation. And so that in many ways, that among many officers, loyalty was shifted from the Tsar to the nation.